All right, there we go. Took it a second there. Let's get our Facebook folks up in here before it's officially time to go. Spinning wheels, 1 and 2. Give it a second to breathe. Welcome in. It is Tuesday night at 6:02 p.m. Mountain Time on, halfway through November. I can't believe it. November 15th, 2022, and the season, maybe mercifully, is halfway over, but we're still here. We're still bringing you the content. Carl, welcome in, buddy. It's good to see you on this fine Tuesday night for Building the Broncos.
Yeah, man. Always good to have the Tuesdays. I wish it was under better circumstances. The hits keep coming for this team, not only losing games, but losing players. I'm not sure I remember a time that we've lost this many players for the Broncos at this point in the season. So it's been an unfortunate year for us, but doesn't mean that we don't have still some good things to talk about. And, as we're the eternal optimists that always looking for the future. And I am. Okay. Yeah, I should say that. And we can always find good, even amongst all the bad that's been happening. So appreciate you all joining us this evening and getting a little chance to talk some Bronco football.
Yeah, and Carl and I first started doing these Building the Broncos podcasts the end of 2016. It would have been like December 2016 heading into the 2017 draft, and that's when the Broncos drafted Garrett Bowles. That draft, we were definitely on the tackle train for that draft. But yeah, man, we have not seen a good Broncos team since we've started doing this. We thought maybe this year it would happen, but alas, sitting here at 3-6 with another very disheartening loss and a historically terrible Broncos offense. So Scott and I have had a chance 2 mornings now to kind of wax poetic on just the painful looking dead on arrival Broncos offense so far. But let's get your take on this. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? 9 games into the season, the Broncos last place in the NFL, Denver on pace to have their worst offense in franchise history dating back to 1961. I mean, how did this happen? How are we here?
Well, I mean, obviously it's not just one thing.
No.
There's been a lot of things that played into us. I mean, we're going to talk about some injuries here in just a little bit. And you look at the offensive line, and Jamie's saying every time they would go to Tyree, it was 99% of the time a disappointing result. He was one of the players that was cut today. And you're right. I mean, he had the play where he fell down, could have picked up the first down if he was up. I mean, the play was going to be open. And I don't fully put that on him because the field was horrible. Everybody was falling down. But it just seems like he does that a lot, or hits him in the hands and drops it, So just offensively, he's been horrific. Special teams, he hasn't added anything to the table with that. But yeah, offensively, like I said, you got all these injuries. I don't know, we were on third string center, third string left tackle and right tackle, right? At one point, the guards, thankfully, we've got both starters back at this point, but Miners missed a few games. So just that whole unit's been gone. Wide receiver wise, Jerry Jeudy goes down. KJ Hamler's missed time. Obviously, Tim Patrick. I still think that was one of the biggest blows of the entire season for the Broncos. Losing.
You haven't even mentioned Javonte Williams.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's another one. And I mean, it's hard to go through the entire list because it's just so long at this point. And, Russell Wilson's banged up on top of that. And then you just see the disconnect between what they're trying to do on the field. Like, nobody seems to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Guys are playing slow. They're just, like I said, it just looks like they don't know what they're doing half the time. Yeah. Like, are they supposed to be running this route? Jerry Jeudy, there's been a lot of times where it's, Russell Wilson's thrown to a spot and Jerry Judy's nowhere near that spot. Yeah. Is that Russell Wilson's fault or is that Jerry Judy's fault? I can't tell you either way at this point, but it does seem like it happens most consistently when going to Jerry Jeudy. And then on top of that, I think you're seeing Russell Wilson trying to run an offense that maybe he shouldn't be trying to. I think he wants to be recognized as one of those quarterbacks that's like a Tom Brady that can sit there and just pick a team apart. And that's just it's not his game. It's part of why he wanted to get away. So let Russ cook, or whatever all the different sayings that we've got with Russell Wilson at this point. And sometimes you just got to figure out, okay, this is what I am good at. Let's do that. Peyton Manning's not going to go out there and run the option offense, or, because he knows he can't go out there and run. So he's got to get out of his own way, get that pride tuned down, get a little bit of humbleness right there, and just say, okay, you know what, maybe what we were doing in Seattle of running the football a lot of play action, getting me on the move, those kind of things. Maybe that is my offense, and that's what I got to be willing to do. Maybe I only throw for 200 yards a game, but we still win a lot of games. Yeah. And it just, like I said, there's been just so much disconnect there. You see the coaching staff way in over their heads. Yeah. And we worried about this before the season started. When you hire all these guys that are first-time people at their position, and you got a lot of guys who are buddies, hey, we grew up as coaches together. We're all buddy. And the coaching circle is small. So I'm not trying to say you're not going to hire at least people that you know, but usually you like to mix a first-time head coach with a lot of veterans around them to kind of help out. He didn't do that. And so that's on Hackett. Coaching staff was his hire. Okay, George Payton to start with hiring Hackett, and then Hackett with making a lot of these bad decisions on the coaching staff. So like I said, the list is really long of what has happened this season and why we're sitting here at 3-6 instead of, I saw the stat if the Broncos averaged 18 points a game, 8-1 right now. That is just crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to even comprehend how bad it is. And, we can injuries, offensive system, talent, guys that we thought would be difference makers probably being overrated and just all falling apart. Broncos country better hope that the biggest issue right now is the coaching staff and the offensive scheme, because you're stuck with, you can change, obviously improve the offensive line, hopefully better health luck next year. So I feel like we say that every year the Broncos have had on the wrong end of the bell curve as far as injury luck. And this year it's even gone off further off the rails. We're entering 49ers, Baltimore Ravens, Los Angeles Charger territory with this team this season, unfortunately, in terms of the volume and significance of the injuries. But you better damn well hope it's the coaching staff, because if it's Russell Wilson, there's not an end in sight for a little bit. So we'll find out. Talk about the injuries here. Got Gordon coming in. Who cares about Turner? Was a terrible signing. I think he was the Broncos' 4th highest graded player in this game before the injury, not letting a lot of pressure. I think Russell Wilson only took 1 sack in the first half, and then after Turner went down, he took 5 sacks after Turner went down, and I think a couple more before Glasgow went down, and then 3 more after that. But offensive line really fell apart when those 2 guys went out there. I thought Turner was playing about what you paid for, which was okay. It's unfortunate. I was hoping to see Turner out there with Cam Fleming at left tackle this upcoming week. Cam Fleming, according to Pro Football Focus, is the 21st highest graded tackle in football so far this season. Nothing to write home about, but it's not, backup level talent. He'd been okay out there, but unfortunate. It's where we are. Diamond Rattler saying, boom, let's go, coffee time. We got the Big Phoenix coming in saying, can we please just get a body that will block? Got bad news for you, Big Phoenix. The only reinforcements you are getting as far as a body that can block are coming from inside the house at this point, luckily. So I guess that'll lead us off to our big news here today. And my heat is not on. I turned it off for sure, Scott. I don't know what you're hearing, but that's not me. I think that's Carl.
I think mine's off too.
Well, I do hear something. It's not coming from me. I don't know. But I digress. The big news today for the Broncos, Billy Turner going on the IR after suffering a knee injury, going and suffered that with being rolled up on, I believe, by Quinn Miners in a play. He's going to be on the IR for 4 weeks. Pretty big bummer to lose Billy Turner, considering he was playing a solid level. And the Broncos right now, is Billy Turner a great right tackle? No. A lot of people wanted the Broncos to pay La'el Collins. La'el Collins has not been great for the Bengals at like 6 times the price of Billy Turner. But now you're really dealing with, tossing your hands up in the air at the tackle position, because you mentioned earlier you're down to your 3rd string right tackle. Carl, no. It's your 4th string right tackle. You have moved on. Billy Turner, your starter to start the year. Cam Fleming, number 2. Tom Compton, we haven't heard from yet. And now you're down to Quinn Bailey. So, I mean, heck, they even tried Calvin Anderson at right tackle in the free agent or in preseason. Maybe you're down to your 5th string right tackle right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. Credit to Quinn Miner kind of down the back half. I mean, he shouldn't be in that position because, it's an unfortunate circumstance. But, what can you even do? It sucks for Billy Turner because the Broncos offense can use all the borderline competent talents they can have right now, and you don't have them.
Yeah, it's been frustrating to obviously see how this offensive line that we thought could be very promising this year, There was a lot of people out there that thought kind of Broncos could be maybe a top 10, top 12 unit with that group. And obviously that's not been the case by any means. And part of that is because of the injuries. But we got Garth Knight coming in saying, gentlemen, I hear the Broncos' strength of schedule for the last 8 games is in the bottom half of the league. Tell me this is important, Nick and Carl.
It would have been important if the Broncos took care of business to start the season, but sitting there at 3-6, I believe they have a playoff percent of our chance of making the playoffs at 3%. Playoffs? 3-6? You kidding me? Probably not happening this year, but maybe they can string some things together, give the Seahawks a worse pick, and really start to build some momentum for next year. Figure out what the offensive identity and what works for this offense, because it is ugly right now. The only thing this offense can live on right now is the deep pass, and it's not even a high volume of deep pass. It's more of like, oh, we got a single high look. We're going to bombs away, and you hit some of them. Sometimes you throw it to the other team and they drop the interception multiple times. But they need to figure out how they can move the football consistently, clean up the penalties, and just offer a more competent offense. I just don't know if they have I think if it does happen, it's a double-edged sword. If it does happen, it's probably the quick pass game. Multiple issues with that, though. A, the offensive line is horrible. Do you want to subject Russell Wilson to a higher volume of hits? B, Russell Wilson's never been good at the quick pass game. When he was at his best in Seattle, it was playing off of a great defense with Marshawn Lynch and then forcing teams into single high looks and then bombs away on the boundary. The Broncos right now don't have the personnel to force teams into single high looks. The run game is terrible. Quick pass game is bad. Pass blocking is not good. Run blocking is not good. You don't have great running backs. So you're really just backed up into a corner right now. I think your best case for this team down the stretch here is that bringing back Cam Fleming, Tom Compton coming into the unit and the offensive line, improving somewhat, killing the penalties, and leaning into a average running game. I think that's your best chance, which is horrible. It's not great, but I really think that's about all you can do.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate truth right now. And Garth, this is, like I said, it's a great question there of just the Broncos, if they were going to do something this year, they had to start out strong. And unfortunately, that's just not been the case. Like I said, they haven't taken care of business. They've been in every one of these games, but when you're not winning them, it doesn't matter. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades or whatever, how that saying goes.
Yeah.
So we got Phil coming in saying, evening, Nick, Carl, and Deacon Scott. There are many problems with this offense. I am lost for words. #Go Broncos. #MHH for life. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't even know how to describe it, really. Like, you go get a quarterback, you spend all this money, you spend all those draft picks, and Russell Wilson has been great most of his career, top 10 quarterback. And all of a sudden he comes here and he looks like, honestly, like Drew Lock last year and the year before that. And so you're kind of going, how in the world do we go from that, what it should have been, to this? I don't think he's completely fallen off a cliff by any means. I don't think he's as good as he was, 4 or 5 years ago by just athletically or anything like that, but it still should not be where it is. And the Broncos have playmakers, before injuries, and you're still not seeing it work. Like I said, those penalties coming in, you see that disconnect there of just anything you even get going. Like this last game, they had some drives going, and then all of a sudden, boom, false start. And this offense isn't good enough to overcome even a 5-yard penalty.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, no doubt. Thank you, Phil, for coming in for the support, and also the angry react. If you guys are joining us on Facebook today, drop us any sort of react. We got a crying react here from Tammy Nugent, probably for all the injury news, and Phil angry. I'm angry too, Phil, but I'm still enjoying hanging out with you guys. Kevin Gray's in the house saying, "What's up, Broncos country, Nick and Carl? Just want to hear what you guys have to say." And the country, Denver Broncos for life. We got the Lord of Liberty coming in here saying, because of all the injuries to the offensive line, some have suggested the Broncos should sit Russ for the remainder of the season. I think there's an argument to sit Russ once you are truly out of playoff contention during the last month of the season. If the offensive line is still this terrible and the coaching staff is for sure fired and you're looking just to protect him. But right now, I think you need the reps. I think you need to figure out and build something right now. I don't think you can put the kibosh on it yet with, what do we have still? 8 games to go, 9 games to go. No, 8 or 7 games to go.
Right.
So, I mean, at some point, if like, let's say he suffers another hamstring injury or things are not healing right and you're sitting there at 4-9, 4-10, then like we might have to have that conversation, which is unfortunate
Right.
because you're sending probably a pretty damn good pick to the Seahawks in that situation, not just the first round, but the second round, but probably got to protect the long-term health then in that case. But I think we're probably a month away from that conversation still. What do you think about that, Carl?
I'm with you. You don't want to completely tank the season at this point. I mean, if they still had that first and second round pick, I might be a little more inclined to kind of go some direction a little bit earlier. Yeah. But when you don't have those picks, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like I said, you got to build something at this point. You got to get at least a little bit of hope moving forward. And if you bench him, then the rest of the roster is like, well, okay, we're done. You know, and what does it say to those players that maybe are up for a contract? Okay, well, this team quits. Why do I want to stay here? If they're not offering me top money, I'm going somewhere else. And so, like I said, it sends a really, really bad message to the entire organization if you do it before you have to.
Yeah, 100%. Mike S saying, "What's up, Broncos country?" And we got Alessandro coming in saying, Billy Turner, the next Juwan James. Juwan James signed a massive contract. Billy Turner's contract was always really short term, probably because of the injury there. So you're talking about a totally different type of investment. Right. The Juwan ones hurts way more given the massive money that they paid, where Billy Turner was, 1-year contract for cheap. William Catalano coming in here saying, it's sort of the problem here, talking about the investment, bringing in people who are injury prone, who is signing off on these players, and the strength and conditioning is terrible and has been. Strengthening conditioning coach, I'm not an expert there, but at some point, proof's in the pudding. You got to maybe shake something up. The Broncos, fortunately, now have a very wealthy ownership group, so hopefully they're going to invest. Everybody has to deal with the salary cap, right? The parameters of that, and Broncos might have to face that a bit if Russell Wilson keeps playing this poorly, but you can spend and win, outperform people in the margins. One of those areas is probably paying the best strength and conditioning coach and program and nutrition that money can possibly buy. So hopefully the Broncos can shake something up there, because it's ridiculous at this point. It's not all the strength and conditioning people's fault, Lauren Landau and whatnot, but I think something does have to shake up. And also part of the right tackle conversation here. We're back at right tackle so far. I would say right tackle has not been the biggest issue on this Broncos offense until probably this last game when Quinn was in for a bit. But the interior offensive line has been much more of an issue to me. I think you've been okay at right tackle. And at the same time, I mean, can somebody point to me a realistic solution at right tackle that would have been better? La'el Collins was pretty much always going to LSU. I think there's something with his agents tie with the Bengals. They paid him big money to do that. They had Chukwuma Okorafor signed big money for the Steelers, who's just been an okay right tackle. And that Steelers offense is not good. And they paid him big money. And then you have, you can point out Abraham Lucas, and I'd agree with you on that one. But other than that, it's an issue of what's actually available there for the right tackle market and what you can do there. I think given what the Broncos spent at Cam Fleming and Billy Turner and Tom Compton, obviously the Tom Compton one does not look great right now, but you had limited options and limited resources to get it right. So it's unfortunate. They probably need to go out there and make a premium investment in the draft, if at all possible, to fortify the tackle position. But specifically the right tackle, there's a massive drop off after the first 6 guys.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Let's say Compton and Fleming are both back healthy this week. Who's your starting 5 for your offensive line?
Do we have, okay, so I looked it up. I didn't see anything about this, but I did not research this one that hard because there was enough other information. Glasgow. Is Glasgow out? He's not on the IR.
Let's say he's healthy.
Let's say he's healthy?
Yes.
Well, first off, thank you. Because, man, Wattenberg looked rough in that game, so that makes a big difference. I think the lineup's pretty easy there for me in that case. For this upcoming game, it would be Cam Fleming at left tackle. Left guard would be Dalton Reisner. Center would be Graham Glasgow. Right guard would be Quinn Miners. And then right tackle would be Tom Compton. And I think you lean harder into the run game for this one. I know that Tom Compton, not the best pass protector out there, but Rashawn Gary last year in the NFC Championship game made him look silly a few times, but he's a great run blocker. And I think you really do have to lean into that with this team, even though you are rushing talent personnel is not great right now.
Okay. I would mix it up.
Okay.
So I would bench Dalton Reisner.
Okay.
He's been so horrible.
Yeah.
It's been, especially in pass protection, that guy's just getting beaten back every time. And it's not that he's getting pushback. It's actually just guys are running right by him.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of also just seeing him like on certain plays where things don't go well, where he does the whole, like, look at everybody else. Like, you messed up. You're supposed to help me, like something like that.
Yeah.
I always think Chris Harris Jr. always did that. Like,
Yeah.
if he got beat over the top, it was safeties. Where were you? And maybe they were supposed to be there, but it always bothered me that Chris Harris would do that.
Yeah.
And it's same with Dalton Reisner. So I'd maybe go ahead and put Compton there. And then you got some big boys in the middle. Let's just run it up the gut and just see what happens.
I think there's so much change that's happening with the offensive line already that Reisner and Minor's the only constants. So that's something I'm thinking about the last part of the season, especially with Reisner set to hit free agency. But it's what it is. Lawrence, body shaming, Lawrence. Is it just me, or is Hackett getting chunkier? He's putting on that winter weight. It's bulking season, baby. He's probably in there grinding the tape and eating a lot of junk food. I mean, I'd be stress eating too if I was him. It's watching that game would definitely slow down my metabolism. Watching that Broncos offensive output. Naj, though, getting me hot in here. $20 coming in, flashing orange, saying, "Hey, brothers, did George Payton play in a role in the assistant coaches? Why did he get rid of Munchak and the running back coach when they did so well last year? The drop-off with Wilson is unreal. But what about Sutton, the offensive line? Is that on coaching? Sutton was not great last year. Still coming off the injury. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Sutton right now. I feel like a lot of the toss-ups that they're giving him right now are not always in the same area code also, which is unfortunate. But I mean, the reality is Sutton is not a top 10 receiver. He's probably in that 15 to 30 range, which is fine, but not a, maybe let's go 15 to 35, just because there's some young ones coming. I mean, he has some good plays, and the offense is horrible right now. So give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that. But as far as the coaching staff goes, my understanding that Munchak was not interested in implementing and teaching an outside zone run scheme. He's been far more gap and inside zone in his career. So that was not a great fit with Hackett. And I'm not sure about the running backs coach. I think it was Curtis Modkins moving on. I mean, when a new coach comes in, most of the time you're giving them reign to pick their own staff. So I think that's probably a safe assumption here.
Yeah. And I'm really nervous about the next coaching staff. You might lose Evero. And that guy has been incredible for the Broncos this year. Even this last game, how many players were they down at the edge position and they were still getting some pressure, and obviously held the Titans pretty darn well there. Derrick Henry had maybe one of his worst games of his career.
Yeah.
You could say this last week.
Josie sorry. Had a great game.
Yeah. But it's sad that that's what gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
The defense had that, and here we are talking about the offense and how horrible they are instead of looking at the good of what this team has been this year.
They suck that much, though. There's nothing else you can possibly talk about. It's unfair. I agree with you, but it'd be a disservice almost to the fan base to not hound on the offensive line. It almost seems like, putting a cherry on top of my dog's what in the backyard, talking about, oh man, unless it's Josie Jewell, then we can hype it up because, linebackers don't matter unless they come from Iowa. But first, Phil, always mattering, coming in saying, let's be optimistic. We go 11-6, win the West. I don't think 11-6 gets you the West, but I digress. Get a bye and go to the Super Bowl. Ha! Did you hear that beep noise? I think it was Phil turning off his Xbox. Man, Phil, I love it. Thank you so much for the support. Got to razz you a little bit. You're not playing for the playoffs at this point. Let's just assume you're 0-0. Try to win the next game. You just got to get better right now and figure out how you're going to win this football game with Wilson. Try to stay healthy too. I mean, God.
Yeah.
And also let's, Carl and I were going to have a topic today about, the individual players to watch going forward, young players, kind of thinking about the long-term building blocks on this team. Too much news came out today. We might get that at the end, although I don't think we'll have time. But that's another thing too. Young players, there's a lot of young talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that you should be excited about going forward, that it's going to be here for the next 2 to 3 years. So wanted to say hello to Paul. Injuries are so bad. I hope Nick, Carl, and Scott don't get hurt covering the Broncos. The Broncos are going to hurt my eyeballs here pretty soon. They've already hurt my heart. But no, thank you so much, Paul. We appreciate you. Jamie coming in saying, good evening, gentlemen. It's still Raiders week. Absolutely. Got to beat Vegas. Man, I hate Vegas. James Webb saying, man, the viewers have dropped off like crazy. Broncos messing with MHH platform. Well, James, as long as you keep showing up and some of you other guys keep showing up, that's okay with me. The real ones are here, and I get it, man. The Broncos are rough right now. How many times you want to come into an episode and be like, yeah, the Broncos offense still sucks. Hopefully we, for you guys still in here, we're making it fun and fresh and offering different angles and whatnot. And we got a whole offseason of hopium coming back around the corner here pretty soon. But again, 0-0 right now. Season starts now, as far as I'm concerned. Dom coming in here saying good evening. Good to see you, Dom. Also, he says go Dogs. I'm curious to see how Georgia does in the SEC championship game coming up here before too long. I'm a Big Ten guy, so I'll be pulling against you when it comes to the playoffs, pulling for Ohio State and or Michigan. But we'll see. Savage Boy Kev coming in saying it was a matter of time that they cut Tyree Cleveland. He's done absolutely nothing with the time here and took a roster spot from Trinity Benson. Trinity Benson doesn't offer the special teams tackling ability that Tyree does, but this to me, okay, so Carl, Tyree Cleveland's gone. We talked about it in the offseason building it. We kept getting word from people connected to the team that don't sleep on Tyree Cleveland making the 53, special teams value, blah, blah, blah. Former 7th round pick. I think he was like the number 2 recruit in the country when he went to Florida too. So like always had athleticism and talent. So now that Tyree, what do you make of Tyree Cleveland being gone?
I mean, like I said, what has he brought to this team? He's been injured a lot. Special teams, he's made a couple okay plays, but it's not something that I'm going, we have to keep this guy. He wasn't doing, where he's the captain of special teams. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy, love him to death. And like I said, when he's been on offense and he's having to take a few more snaps lately because of all the injuries, he's offered 0 for the offense. And so it makes sense that he's gone. You got to have a little bit more from that roster position. And I think we talked about it when the roster was announced. We thought that Tyree Cleveland would make it, but I was really ticked that he made it over Seth Williams. Mm-hmm. And obviously we saw Seth Williams was like, I'm not going to stay on this practice squad. I should have made this roster because talent-wise, at least what he brought to the offense was so much more than what Tyree Cleveland's ever shown. And I know that's back into the roster, all those kind of things. But I'm looking at it now with all the injuries at wide receiver, and I'm going, Seth Williams, that big body guy, might be making at least a couple plays for you. I don't know, but I'm just a Seth Williams truther there. I love that guy. So, but that's just me. And we got Ross coming in saying, definitely a Broncos fan this week. Hope you guys and my Chargers pull off wins, brothers, and injuries. Always support good AFC West content. Hey, Ross, I appreciate you tuning in, even being a Chargers fan. At least you're the Chargers are my least not favorite team in the AFC West.
It's really hard to hate Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Right. And
my least hated team.
Right. And I live in Kansas City country. I'm surrounded by Chiefs fans.
Chiefs Kingdom.
There you go.
Who cares?
Oh my gosh. And Raiders fans are the worst. And Chargers fans, you guys are okay.
Yeah, it's hard to hate Justin Herbert. Lawrence Rivera coming in saying, I'm getting chunkier too. It's all love. Yeah, winter. It's bulking season, baby. I'm off the hikes right now. Carl, I think I posted it in the group. Do you know how many miles I hiked this year? Did you see that?
Did you say 312?
300, exactly. 312 miles, 312, which is longer than the state of Iowa, east to west. So, hell yeah. Walking that Broncos paying off. RD coming with a Canadian $10 saying, odds Hackett's adjust his offense to deal with the offensive line. I mean, how can you adjust the offense to deal with no offensive line? The only way to do that is if you have a dominant, quick game quarterback who can identify the matchups pre-snap and get it out quickly and spread the offense out. That's not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson might be the most offensive line run game dependent quarterback of the veteran quarterbacks in the entire NFL, given his play style right now. So I don't think you can. I really don't. Continuing, RD, thank you for the super chat. He says, in the first play, Russ is in shotgun, dropping back to pass the ball to Sutton 20 yards down the field in double coverage. I think I'm done. Well, RD, it's frustrating right now. You know what? We'll call it if anybody does leave right now because the Broncos are bad, I won't fault you for it. I'm not going to revoke your fan card. I hate the people who are like, oh, you're not a true fan. Shut the hell up. People can fan how they want. Yeah. We'll call it a sabbatical. If you're rough right now, think you're done right now, we'll see again this offseason and next year. I don't blame you. That's rough right now.
Yeah, I mean, and this is in any industry out there. If you're putting out a bad product, why would you keep coming back to it?
Yeah.
If Apple starts making really horrible phones, eventually somebody's going to come in and take over. I kind of remember when Microsoft started putting out really crappy computers, and all of a sudden Apple comes in with, all of their MacBook and all those kind of things, and everybody's like, this is so much better. And now it made Microsoft have to improve their product and do something better, and now they've kind of fought back the other way. So it's kind of that ebb and flow. And so I agree. I don't blame you for struggling to want to watch this.
Yeah.
I want to be able to watch these games with my kids, but it's kind of hard when they're just like, Dad, are they going to do something? I'm kind
of
going,
they're young enough that they don't remember, right? That's what we're pulling for right now. Dylan coming in here saying, "Sup Broncos country, make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already." He also says, "Tattoo appointment made me a little late." That's all good. Robert coming in on Facebook saying, "Too many injuries. Is that the fault of the conditioning staff? I know San Diego is going and /LA is going through many injuries on the defensive front. I think some of it is drafting and signing guys who are injured, like Billy Turner and Tom Compton, Randy Gregory. All three of those guys, extensive injury history. Guess what? We're here now with injuries. Jerry Jeudy, a lot of concerns about his ankles and his frame when he was drafted. He's spent a third of his career on the injury list. KJ Hamler, you drafted him. Well, you're probably going to be out most of his rookie season because of the hamstring issues. Here we are again. So part of it's probably that, but also football's a violent game. It's why depth is so important. At some point, though, it's just you toss your hands up and curse the football gods. Desert Creature talking about the injuries, saying strength and conditioning coaches need to visit other teams that do not have as many injuries and see what they do differently. I would hope that like I said earlier, the Broncos have almost more resources right now than any other team as far as the finances, thanks to the ownership group for now until the Washington sale happens and they're the Amazon's presents to you the Washington Commanders by Bezos or something like that. But I think the Broncos are going to spend big money within the to win within the margins here, and I think that could be strength and conditioning is a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because I know when Lauren Landau was hired, like that was like everybody was excited about that hire. Look at how many NFL players spend their offseason working with this guy. All these other sports. Look at all these players that want to come work with them. Olympic athletes, all that kind of stuff. Guys training for the draft and everything. But it just obviously it hasn't worked to transfer to the field, and that's always what matters most. So Broncos hopefully are going to be looking somewhere else for next year. And we got Miller 707 coming in saying, "What's up, Broncos fam? I hope all is well. Broncos for life. With all the ups comes a bunch of downs, but we will get through this. Go Broncos." Yeah, I'm trying to remember that time between John Elway retiring and obviously then getting Peyton Manning. We had a few good years in there, like 2005, Broncos made the AFC Championship, but for the most part, it was a lot of downtime. And it's the reality of the NFL. If you don't have that franchise quarterback that is young and perfectly in place, it's kind of hard to stay that consistent winning team. And so I hope the Broncos can get the next coaching hire right. I hope they can get something figured out with Russell Wilson and get him looking more like he did a couple years ago. And if that's the case, then the Broncos can be right back in it. But that next coaching hire going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Ronquillo, good evening. Nick and Carl, I'm building the Broncos. Go Broncos. Good to see you, Michael. See Greg Smith is in the house here saying good evening, Broncos country. Also awesome to see Greg in the house as always. Wombat saying our defense has been so good this year that if the offense had scored just a meager 18 points per game, we would be 8-1 right now. How different would it be? 18 is not a hard line to get, no doubt. Obviously, if the Broncos were scoring more, maybe the other teams would be scoring more too. It's kind of the games would be played differently. They'd flow differently if you had scored more points, but 18 is not a hard line to get, unfortunately. And the Broncos are not getting it done. I regret to even imply that, like, you know what, this year probably down the drain sucks with all the injuries and whatnot, but it can't be worse next year, right? I'm afraid to even utter that because like the football gods might, just give us a finger again or something. David McElrath coming in here, $10, supporting us. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate you saying good evening, Broncos country, Nick, Carl, and Scott. I've been a Broncos fan my whole life during good and bad. Still love the Broncos. Well, we still love you, David. And we appreciate you coming in and supporting us today. It means a heck of a lot to do that. And the Broncos had a really good run from the 80s, a little bit of down sometime in the 2000s, but then to get Manning as well. This is definitely the darkest the Broncos have had since pre-John Elway. And it's kind of just, I feel like it's payback for selling our souls for that Super Bowl 50. We essentially weakened at Bernie's with Peyton Manning's football corpse there that last season. But it'll eventually get better. You know what? This is all just leading up to by the time that Patrick Mahomes is done being the best quarterback in football in 8 to 10 years from now, Broncos are going to be right back in it, baby. You just got to hold out for a little bit longer. But year by year, you see things. Thing is, too, it seems like it's really bad right now, and being tied to Russell Wilson hurts a lot. But how bad were the Giants last season and coming into this season? Like everybody said they were one of the worst teams in football, likely to have one of the top teams to have the first overall pick this year. They look great. How bad were the before Joe Burrow came to the Bengals? Even the first year of Joe Burrow, 5th overall pick. Things can turn around fast. This season hurts a lot because the expectations are so bad, but George Payton keeps stacking draft classes. You get a little bit better on the offensive line. You beat the injury bug. You can be right back in this. There's still some building blocks here. I know it sucks right now, but that's the view right here. I think the further we get away, we'll hopefully be able to lean in a little bit more optimism.
Yeah. And we got Base Case coming in here saying things.
It's been a bit. I want to say hello, Based. It's always enjoy you coming in. So I just want to say hi.
Yeah, he says thoughts on Frank Reich.
Frank Reich.
Reich. Sorry. Yep, you're right. I like him. I think one thing I loved about the Colts teams until this year, a lot of times I always thought they played above the talent that you saw on the field. Like they were very disciplined teams. You saw at least enough playmakers to go out there and do a few things. But the defense especially was very disciplined on what they were doing on the field. And they found ways to win against some very top teams. Like the Colts were one of the toughest teams for the Chiefs to play these last few years. I don't know what they do differently compared to everybody else, but there's just something there that they always seem to cause problems for Patrick Mahomes. And so I think the Broncos could do a lot worse than him for sure. I think he was kind of the scapegoat on a season that was going down the tank, and them trading all these draft picks for all these kind of over the hill quarterbacks or guys that were not great quarterbacks, but had some big names. And, I kind of wondered what would happen if he did get with like a Russell Wilson. Could he really turn around Russell Wilson and get this offense back on track? And I think he could also hire a pretty good staff because he is well known around the league.
My biggest concern with Frank Reich is that, and this is just purely hearsay, but he wasn't the same to his high contract star players as far as demands of them and communication with them as he was the rest of the guys. So you have Russell Wilson in here who probably needs somebody to come in and be like, nope, this is what we're doing. I want your input, but also we have data and tape that should dictate what we need to do. Because despite you thinking, you're Tom Brady, we have a lot of data that says otherwise. So that's my biggest concern with Frank Reich. Not calling him a pushover by any means, but I think you need somebody to come in here and be like, this is how it's going to get done. This is my team. You're my quarterback. We appreciate you. You signed here, though, and I'm here to win football games, not to pad your stat line. And maybe that's harsh for me coming at Wilson that way, but I think you need to have somebody come in here and be like, we're running it this way. Yeah. You figure it out. I'm going to try to do what I can to make you the best version of yourself, but it's going to be what I think is the best version of yourself too. I don't think you want your quarterback having too much power, especially given what it's looked like this season. Garth Knight coming in $5 saying, Nick and Carl, when will I be able to get my hands on some mushrooms in Colorado? I'll plan a game trip for then. I'm not in Colorado, so I can't speak to any psychedelics, but you turn on the Broncos on Sunday and it feels like you're watching maybe having a bad trip of some sort with that offense going there.
The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, God. Dolph World coming in. Always good to see Dolph saying, look, we go 2-0 the Raiders Panthers, and we're right back in this for the 6 or 7 seed. Gotta believe. I think the data says the Broncos have a 4% chance of making the playoffs still, but it starts this week. If you beat the Raiders, you climb up. So we said entering this Titans game was probably the toughest game of the year. That was before 5 of their starting players on the defense were announced out, and you still only put up 10 points. But, forget the playoffs right now. The pressure's off. You go out there. Well, I mean, pressure's not off because Hackett's fighting for his damn job. But pressure's off for the players, in my opinion. Go out there, get better, win the game in front of you. Don't think about anybody else. Just got to get better.
Right.
We got Naj coming in again, I think. Yeah, $9.99 Naj saying, oh, I thought I clicked it. Where's it going? Naj. Okay, well, I lost him there. I can see it where it says right here. I'm really rooting for Hackett to succeed, but there has been almost no improvement if we lose this week. Who do you see realistically coaching this team in 2023? Naj, I see your thing up top here, but when I click it, it doesn't take me to your comment. There it is. Thank you, Scott. $9.99. Who do we see realistically coaching this team? I think Steichman is a pretty popular name right now, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I think that Frank Reich is still another popular name right now, but I mean, the odds-on favorite has to be Dan Quinn. I know a lot of people are not going to be excited about that, but I think it's pretty easy for George Payton to go be like, this is the guy I really kind of wanted to go with to begin with. We didn't have the money to compete with Dallas and Jerry Jones, we're going to pay him head coach money to be the defensive coordinator. I'm going to go with the guy I trust and know. So I think right now, who do I realistically see coaching this team right now in 2023? I think it's probably Dan Quinn.
I would agree. And I think he is a nice in-between of Hackett and Fangio. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, what you see with these teams a lot of times is, okay, we fired this guy who was, it's my way or the highway in Fangio. Now that we're going to go, hey, buddy, coaches, players coach, loves everybody, rah kind of guy. And I think you're right. Dan Quinn kind of fits a little bit more in the middle. He does well listening to players and talking to them and treating them like they're actual real men. Fangio, sometimes I think he just kind of, I don't care what you have to say. There's no real respect there that you would like to see. And so I think he would be a pretty decent hire. And I think he might be able to keep Evero around. I don't know. Maybe. That would be really nice to see. And I've really loved that Dan Quinn has really done well to show he could adjust his defense. Yeah. He really flew into that cover 3 there with the Seahawks and loved it and tried to take that to Atlanta and mixed results there of how that was going. And just his time there in Dallas, be able to see him really mix up and say, you know what, I'm going to be willing to run some quarters. I'm going to be willing to run a lot more just some different things that he's mixed in to make that a great defense there in Dallas. Like I said, when I can see a coach that's willing to do that and just say, okay, I need to adjust to the times and how teams are trying to play on offense, that makes a big difference for me of how they're going to then come in there and be a head coach too.
Yeah, 100%. Slade coming in, $4.99, saying, do you guys think we should just sit Wilson the rest of the season? I see no point in playing him with the injuries all over the offense. Might as well save him. I think you still got to figure out some things on offense and get him right and get him confident. Unfortunately, you do have some, fortunately, you do have some reinforcements supposedly coming to the Denver offensive line right now. Cam Fleming has arguably been your best offensive lineman this season outside of Quinn Miners. We love Quinn Miners. Everybody loves the belly. Cam Fleming was playing B- level football for the offensive line, which was the best you were getting so far this season. Sucks, but it just is what it is. So him coming back, I think, is a big boon. Also, I think Tom Compton last year, he was one of the best run blocking tackles in football. So I think you probably still keep Russ out there. What I'd like to see is maybe let him cook less, even if it means you're doing, the run, pass, punt offense for a bit. You're playing great special teams right now. Maybe, punching them in the mouth a few times and starting to establish an identity is better for the long term, and also getting some hits off Russell Wilson. Maybe then you can start doing play action more later. The other thing is, especially this week against the Raiders, you're going up against one of the worst defenses in football. This is a game where if you don't score more than 17 points, fire Hackett from a cannon. I don't know, like skydive or something.
Yeah,
nothing violent, but if you can't score against this Raiders team, I know you're banged up, but God bless it, they're terrible. They let a terrible Colts team march up and down the field and score on them. So granted, the Broncos offensive line is more hurt, but still. So it's definitely, I think, a conversation to be had closer to the end of the season, but we're not quite there yet. Still some injuries to talk about here before we wrap it on up. Kwan Williams, arguably the Broncos' probably most underrated player so far this season. In my opinion, he's been awesome at the slot. He had to have a scope in his knee to remove some damage, maybe some, I think it was some scar tissue, maybe perhaps in his knee to clear some things up. So he's going to be out. He's not on the IR yet. That doesn't mean he's not going to miss more than the IR time. Look at Quinn Miners this year, but he's injured. He's going to be out for a bit. I would assume that Asang Bassi is going to be playing in the slot this week, which is not great. Luckily, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are out. I know Darren Waller is for sure. I think Hunter Renfrow might be injured as well.
Yeah, he is.
So as long as you can protect him somewhat versus Devontae Adams, then maybe you'll be okay there. And also, Jerry Jeudy suffered a minor ankle injury, which is great. I mean, thank God for that. Broncos, see, Scott, did have some good ones. Broncos get good news on Jerry Jeudy on the injury front. But Jerry Jeudy might be out this week, might be out next week, but it's not going to be a season-ending thing. He's going to get a chance to get some reps out there and, hopefully gain some momentum going into next season. Maybe boost his trade stock a bit. I don't know. We'll see. But any other injuries front that I'm missing there, Carl? We got Quan Williams. We got the Tom Compton might be back. Cam Fleming might be back. No information on Glasgow. Billy Turner to IR. Quan Williams injured. Oh, I got one. So okay. Tyree Cleveland waived, obviously. Right. Jonathan Harris called up from the practice squad. You guys would probably recall Jonathan Harris, number 92, was arguably the Broncos' worst defensive lineman, unfortunately, during preseason. So hopefully he is a game day inactive with somebody else being active up there. But Jonathan Harris is up there. And bringing it full circle here, I'm sure we got some more comments here while I'm going on a long-term conversation. And we got questions on Browning and Randy Gregory. I'll leave that to Carl for a second to ponder. But the Tyree Cleveland stuff, I think the Tyree Cleveland stuff for me is as much about opening a pathway for Jalen Virgil and potentially Brandon Johnson going forward. Both guys, Brandon Johnson looked great in training camp, made a couple big plays in preseason. I believe he can come back here pretty soon and he should be able to go. And also Jalen Virgil had the big play. Jalen Virgil considered a great gunner and special teams potential coming into the league. So you clear a path for these younger guys with, more years of cost control to see if they can develop and get some more chances in this league. So, Tyree Cleveland is gone. Todd, they waived him today and then promoted Jonathan Harris.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of people kind of clamoring for some of these young wide receivers. Like I said, Virgil with his speed, get him a chance here with this offense. And, with KJ Hamler going down with injury, again, you got a lot more that's added to the offense by having a Virgil compared to Tyree Cleveland. And so I don't blame the Broncos for cutting him. Wouldn't surprise me if he actually ended up coming back. Can he qualify for the practice squad?
Tyree?
Yeah.
I think so, because they waived him. Okay. So he's still on that rookie contract. So it's definitely possible.
I struggle to see another team pick him up.
Yep.
Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe somebody obviously saw something in him to make the Broncos roster.
Yeah. And
even with missing most of training camp and preseason with his neck injury. So maybe he comes back. I don't know. Like you talked about, he had so much promise coming out of high school. Very highly recruited player. Made some really big plays there at Florida. And you just kind of hope that maybe that could catch on here with the Broncos. It's kind of the same with like Juwan Winfrey. Remember when the Broncos drafted him and everybody had all these high hopes coming from Colorado, and he just couldn't quite get out of his own way. Kept getting injured. He'd have a few nice plays in training camp and then he'd miss the next about 3 or 4 practices and just never quite lived up to that hype that everybody had for him. And so, unfortunately, a lot of those kind of wide receivers, that's just how it goes. Jerry Jeudy's another one that just hasn't lived up to the hype that everybody had for him. And you kind of think about some of those next wide receivers that were taken, of CeeDee Lamb, the guy that I really wanted for the Broncos, Justin Jefferson. Whew, what a career that guy's had so far.
Yeah.
And, I look at that last game that he just had. I don't know if anybody watched that Vikings game, but his catch there when time's running out and just boom, goes up there, comes down with it, takes it out of the defender's hands pretty much. How would that change this offense? And it just, I'm not saying that Jerry Jeudy's a horrible player by any means. He's just not top 15 pick at this point. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of Broncos take the wrong guy at the position in the round that they take him. Looking back the last 5 years, Jerry Jeudy, The Broncos take Jerry Jeudy later on the first round. Justin Jefferson's taken. The Broncos take George Butt. The very next pick, George Kittle is taken. The Broncos take Netanya Moody. The very next pick, Michael Owenahue, who's one of the top 2 graded guards so far this season, was taken. The Broncos take Dalton Reisner. 2 picks later, Elton Jenkins is taken by the Packers. I mean, it's just narrow misses, ships in the night, if you will, for some of those guys. So close. But guys, we're at 50 minutes. We're probably going to start to wrap up here. I know Carl's got some stuff he's got to take care of. So any final thoughts here, Carl? I mean, obviously a lot of injury. I see we had some questions on Baron Browning and Randy Gregory. Wednesday is when the injury report officially comes out. We had some moves today roster-wise, but we'll know a lot more tomorrow with those guys who are not going to be on the IR or activated from the IR just yet, based on what the injury report is. So make sure you're tuning in tomorrow night. We should hopefully have some information on the likes of Justin Simmons, Baron Browning, and Randy Gregory, who hopefully should all be back, and maybe even further information on Cam Fleming and Tom Compton, who have a chance to play this week.
Yeah. So I mean, just some closing thoughts. I really did like our original topic we had for tonight before we got all this news that was coming in. And we were looking at just some young players that really, if they show up big, how that changes the entire offseason. And, just a couple names that I would recommend everybody just kind of pay attention to, even if the season is lost, it's not lost yet. I don't want to completely put that out there, or anybody say, hey, Carl said this. But you can start looking at some of those young guys and say, okay, this really changes how we view that whole offseason. So like Damari Mathis is one of those for me. Mm-hmm. Just that we've talked about it before, of the value of cornerback. I mean, it's obviously why they took Patrick Surtain as a top 10 pick there, and it's worked out great for him. And Mathis, he's kind of been up and down so far his rookie season. But if he can really kind of close out the year, it might move down how much they need cornerback going into the offseason. Maybe it makes Darby a little bit more expendable, where they could open up some cap space because they're going, okay, we have a number 2 that can get out there and play. Another guy that I know, I'm going to say this name, PJ Locke. He's going to be a restricted free agent next year. If he keeps going out there playing well at that safety position, maybe kind of move some things down on that of, maybe Jackson doesn't have to come back for another season on a 1-year contract. I doubt he's going to come back anyway. But still, you feel a lot more comfortable with that kind of move of going from the veteran to some of these younger guys because of some of that play. So, like I said, at this point, when I'm looking at the team, it's looking at individual players and what they can really bring moving forward. And so we can focus on the here and now because, season's not completely lost. Got a couple winnable games ahead of the Broncos here. Maybe you get some momentum going, get some confidence built up in this team. Maybe Compton and Fleming come in and really solidify that offensive line and start getting things working in the right direction. I don't know. I mean, there's still moments of hope moving forward. But like I said, just some of those individual players I'm going to be paying a little more attention to moving forward. Yeah,
for me, it's all about the offense. Defense is playing great. I don't care anymore. I can't take it. Offense for me. I see a question here. What's up with Caden Stearns? Caden Stearns suffered a hip injury. He's on IR. Sounds like there's a chance he might not come back this season, based on the significance of the hip injury. If we do see him, it'll probably be way closer to the end of the year. So shoulder shrug, I guess, on that one. But the 2 guys I'm looking for on the offensive side of the ball, who's going to potentially be here and be guys who are ascending and be part of the solution for the offense getting better in the future. Watching Quinn Miners at right guard, watching Greg Dulcich at tight end. Those are 2 starters next year for you. I mean, other than that, I guess Cortland Sutton as well, still a young player. Hopefully, I mean, he had 6 catches for 66 yards and a couple great ones in this last game. But really it's Dulcich and Miners on their rookie contracts, guys who should be hopefully that much better. And again, part of the solution next season for the offense, digging out of this grave that, is halfway to China at this point.
Yeah. 2 great names there. As when would you start playing like a guy like Luke Wattenberg?
He's got to be able to snap the damn ball. If he can't snap the ball, I guess you have a conversation there at one of the guard spots, but I think I'd rather see Netanya Moody out there first and really lean into the run game personnel and make teams pay if they're playing, cover 2, cover 4, cover 6 than Luke Wattenberg, who I think is a little bit better in pass coverage. But like I'm just, spoiler alert for you guys, I'm leaning hard into the run game this offseason because I think Russell Wilson is bad against two high safeties. The data said so far this season he has been. So how do you beat that? If teams are playing two high safety shells, you punch them in the bleeping groin multiple times with the run game. And the Broncos are soft right now. They don't have an identity. I want the identity to be beast mode style Marshawn Lynch offense and Russell Wilson playing off of that. I think that's what you need to lean into.
Yep. So I'm completely there with you.
Yep. No identity. Got to get stronger there. And I think Dulcich and Quinn Miners can certainly help you there. Javonte Williams coming back, but man, rough times for the Broncos, no doubt, but things are going to get better. And no, William, we're not hiring Jason Garrett as the head coach. Giving me a laugh there. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate all you. Positivity coming in. Here's a name for you. Positivity. Patrick Surtain. Bill Barnwell's number 3 listed player for Defensive Player of the Year behind Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons. And it's pretty rare for a defensive back to even get mentioned for Defensive Player of the Year, let alone top 3. So God bless. Patrick Surtain, awesome player. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. Thank you, Randy Jones. Make sure you're following Carl. Oh, and stars, Randy. Thank you so much, Randy. We appreciate you coming in over on Facebook. Carl Dumler, MHH. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. Make sure you're following me at Nick Kendell, MHH. We're going to give this Mile High salute here to Patrick as well. Thank you so much for the coffee, lioncoffee.com. Check it out. Also, make sure you're following us at BTB Football Pod and, of course, at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook communities. We go live on Facebook every single day at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And as the ticker says underneath there, please subscribe, like, and share. I know the season is rough. These are the building block years, guys. It's the 7th building block year in a row, right? But we're gonna look back at this at some point and laugh. I hope, maybe laugh hysterically because we've lost our minds. But it's going to get better. I almost guarantee it. Either way, Carl, it's always great to hang out with you. It's always great to hang out with you guys in here too. Shout out to Scott working the 1s and the 2s in the background. Make sure you guys continue to practice kindness and compassion and patience. Love y'all. Go Broncos.